I cut the wrong spot. Don't be like me, idiot. Damn, I just cut the wrong spot like a dumbass. Well, I'm gonna have a slice in the back of my seat, I guess. My name is Zach Ellis, and welcome to my journey. I don't know where I'm going or how I'm gonna get there, but I'm gonna be tearing shit up every step of the way, along with a few friends, of course. Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll be building, modifying, repairing, fabricating, and racing every chance I get. But if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to smash the subscribe button, and of course, enjoy the video. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new here, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be working on the SRT4 again. I actually picked up a set of the Viper seat inserts from SP Tuning. I'll link it down in the description so you guys can go find your inset. For one side, it's 70 bucks, I believe, which is a solid deal in my opinion. The unique thing about this one is this is actually an injection mold style, so this would be the same manufacturer style as the factory kind that came in the Vipers or some of the SRT4s. You don't have to worry about this one breaking over time just from normal wear and tear, which is a big thing, especially I'm going to be using this thing, especially on like track days and racing. I don't want this thing to break under just me getting in and out of the car, taking hard turns, or braking really hard. So today is just going to be basically a step-by-step of how you get this thing put into your seat. This is my first time doing this. I've done a bunch of research, so hopefully this video is going to help anybody who's thinking about getting this and it has a little fear, I guess, of cutting into your seat. Don't get me wrong, I've got plenty of fear cutting into the seat. Either way, first thing I'm going to do is go over the tools that you're going to need to knock this job out, and then we're going to hop right into the car, remove the seat, remove the backrest, and get right into it. So you need a 15mm socket or wrench to remove the seat, a 13mm socket or wrench to remove the backrest from the seat. You need a razor blade of any size. I would definitely get an extension one like this so you can cut through the foam in the seat. Another thing is a Sharpie to trace where you're going to have to cut, and then a set of pliers to remove the hog clips. Another thing that you could have is a second set of pliers. This is going to help spread the hog clips open. Not required, but it's definitely going to be helpful. And then the last thing is a little pick tool. Basically what I use this for is going to be to unzip the backs of the seat. The zippers don't come with the little clasp to grab onto, so this will help get them unzipped easily enough. Not required, but it just makes life a little bit easier. Alright, the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the seat from the car. You could technically do it in the car. I'm not going to do that mainly because lighting is terrible. You guys will never be able to see. So, like I said, first thing is to remove the seat. You have a bolt here, a bolt over there. They are 15mm, and then you got two more in the back. Alright, so now that we got the seat out of the car, we're going to take the backrest off of the bottom portion. So, to do that, you've got to run up these zippers here. There's one on each side. Typically they'll look like this, so they're tucked up in there. Boom, there it is. Run that zipper up, and then there's two bolts on each side that you have to undo, and the top will slide out. We got the backrest off here. Pretty straightforward process. It's 4 bolts, it's not rocket science. Now we can actually get into removing the seat cover and cutting the foam out to make these things fit. All right, so the next thing is like this little plastic stripping here. It's like a hook fastener, so this the portion where your back sits against has a hook, and then the back portion has a hook, and they just kind of snap together. I think the easiest is just to slide the back portion all the way over, and it's going to be disconnected that way. Alright, so now that we've got the backrest off, the next thing to do is flip the seat over so we can get up inside of here and see if you guys can see this. See the double clips there? Those are called hog clips. You have to disconnect those because the seat right here is anchored to them. So we're going to take pliers, we're going to bend those clips open so they release from this frame, and then we'll be able to pull the cushion all the way off. So there's one. I don't know if you guys can see that. Just a spiky piece of metal. It's like a nail on both ends with no head. Then that is 2. So there's number 2. Then we'll repeat on the other side. Now that we've got all 4 of these clips off, you're going to want to save these clips. Again, like I said, they're called hog clips. If you were to lose them, if you had like stainless steel welding wire, you could accomplish the same job. Or go on Amazon for like 12 bucks. You can get the specific pliers and a F-ton of those things. So, got those. Next thing you want to do is pull these rods out. So this is what the hog clips were hooked into. It's just a metal rod with a hook at the end. Pull these out. There's going to be one on each side. Set them aside because we'll put them back in once we finish the seat. Alright, so now that we've got those rods pulled out, the hog clips are removed, the seat cover is now ready to come off. So basically, make sure that your zippers are all the way up. Boom, boom, and then you're just gonna basically peel the front up all the way. So we got it out. One thing to note, let me get a little closer. When you're folding the inside of the seat up from the bottom, down here, let me get it up higher, you can see this black line right here. Inside there's Velcro, which is this white strip right here, and it keeps that weld or that sewn seam sucked in. Well, the next crease up is not Velcro. It's actually hog clipped again. You could, in theory, remove those hog clips and take this seat cover off completely, but I would advise against it just because these ones are not as accessible as the ones on the bottom. It's going to be a lot harder to get these in and out unless you know what you're doing. Like if you have all the tools and you've done this before, go for it. If not, I would just leave them in place. So the trick to get it off though is to pull these top corner bolsters off or shoulder bolsters off. Once you get it off, you can kind of feed your hand up over and fold the seat cover over like that. So we've got the seat cover removed. This is the back. I don't know if all these seats look the same. I've never really seen any pictures with the covers taken off, so it's hard to say. Either way, this is what the backside's gonna look like. So we're gonna cut from the front first, and then we'll work on the backside second. All right, so I tried to get you guys set up in a position where you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully it's not too far away. If it is, I'll zoom it in and when I'm editing. So when you get these, I can't remember if they came attached together or separated. They're hard to get apart. It's not the easiest thing ever. I used this little clip tool here to hook under each lip, and then I jammed little pieces of cardboard under each piece on one side, and then I flipped it over and worked on the other side. I'll put a picture in here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It took me like 10-15 minutes to get that thing apart. So if you get these and they're not stuck together, don't stick them together. Save yourself some time. Alright, so next step, we have to measure the placement of the harness pass-through on the front. The measurements that I saw online was like this lip here is going to be roughly 6 1/4, 6 1/8, 6 1/2, somewhere around there, inches from the top. So take your tape measure. I got this tape measure from Horrible Freight. It does the job. It's nothing fancy. And I'm gonna start. I'll go 6 1/8. If that's too low or too high, I can let you guys know after the fact. Cool. Now that we've got the 6 1/8 inches measured out from the top, we just want to basically place this thing in center as best we can. You're going to eye it up, make sure it's in the center. And then I'm going to trace around the outside and then a little bit on the inside. So I went ahead and I put a center point on there as well. So 6 1/8 from the top, and then it's 5 1/4 from each side to give you 10 1/2 inches total. Once you have it pretty squared up, level all the way around, you're going to go ahead, trace around it, trace on the inside as best you can, and then you're going to start cutting essentially. We'll probably mark the back side first and then start cutting. Boom. So that gives you a rough placement idea. One thing to note too is on this insert, you can see it's smooth and then there's a taper section right there. So the hole you're going to be cutting is only going to be a little bit larger than the hole on the backside or the inside portion, because this thing tapers up at the end. So you're going to go a little bit bigger than this, so when it gets in there it kind of wedges itself into place. You don't have to cut. If you cut all the way to this line here, it's not going to look great, it's not going to work great, so you want to make sure you just don't cut the holes too large. Alright, so now we're on to the back side. So when you flip it over, you want to cut back the plastic just so you're writing on the foam, not on the plastic. This thing is going to be placed measuring from this crossbar here, this back support, roughly 2 3/8, 2 1/2 inches, somewhere around there. That's going to help locate where this thing is supposed to go. So we got our 2 3/8 measurement marked. Get her placed there. Make sure it's centered again. Alright, cool. Now that we've got the circles marked on the back of the seat, we're just going to set the seat vertical to confirm that the line is in the correct spot, essentially. We want to make sure that this thing isn't, at some stupid angle. So we've got the back side marked here, spin around, you got the front side, so you're gonna see this is roughly where the inside of the harness is. If you were to draw a straight line from that point right there, all the way through to this point right here, so the same point but on the back side, put your finger in that corner, in this corner, and then you want to put this so that the headrest is kind of in a vertical position, and see if these are kind of straight across from each other, which I'm trying to get it to where you can see on camera. My fingers are directly across from each other. That means our placement is going to be roughly accurate. It might not be exactly where it needs to be, but it's going to be close enough to where I'm comfortable to start cutting. So we're going to get on this front side, we're going to stay perpendicular to the backrest, and we're going to start cutting out on this inside spot here. Remember, it's one of those, like when you're building a porch or a swing set or whatever the hell you're making out of wood, they say measure 50 times, cut once. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. And then when we do start cutting, we're going to work our way from this little circle up until the harness fits and it's snug. We don't want it to be too tight, but we definitely don't want it to be too loose. So small steps up to the correct size is what we're trying to accomplish. That way you're going to mitigate any chance of errors occurring. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start chopping this thing up. Chopping is probably not a good term. We're going to start making precision cuts to fit this thing where it needs to be. Sounds a little better. Alright, so as you guys can see here, I have an extension I stuck through the seat. Basically the purpose of that extension is to kind of help give you a little bit of a visual representation of the angle. So I try to keep it as close to perpendicular with that front headrest portion to get that thing through there in a position that I know is correct. So now I can kind of use this as a guideline for my razor blade placement, and I'm going to cut all the way through, and hopefully it puts this thing in the correct position. I'd rather cut the hole small initially, front and back, so that the harness pass-through is snug, and then I can trim away excess material as required. So now that the first cut is through, my nerves are a little settled because it's definitely nerve-wracking cutting a hole. Even though at this point, if I decided to turn back, it's really no issue. It's not going to make any difference. But I'm comfortable. Well, I'm more comfortable now cutting away at this foam more to actually put a hole in my seat. So we're gonna start cutting at it. I'll probably time lapse it, and I will keep you guys posted as we go. Alright, so I want to get you guys a little update on what we got going on so far. I've been cutting at this seat for, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe, and I'm just going to show you kind of where I'm at and what my technique is. So, I've got the harness pass-through just kind of sitting in place. It's not nearly ready to be installed yet, but you'll see like how tight a fit this is. If I pull this harness or the pass-through out, you can see I've been making slow cuts away at each side and at the top and at the bottom, all while making sure I'm staying level with the piece in the front, which the harness pass-through on the front is installed. So like right now it barely fits. I can't get it in there with one hand is how tight it is. So I'm slowly gonna trim high and low. So here's the front. It is close to being flush with the front of the seat. It is pretty level. It looks like maybe this side might be able to go up a little. But either way, I trimmed just to this inside hole size. So it's squeezed in there, but the part where I talked about it tapering is making contact still. So it's stuck. You can see how small those holes are versus the size of this. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to accommodate that hole to fit that tapered section. So I might trim around this edge here at like a crazy wide angle, and then I got to trim up inside that hole a little bit because you see it's still a little nasty. But all in all, this isn't that bad. It's pretty straightforward. Definitely scary to start cutting your seat, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Look at all the foam. So you see I took relatively small slices at a time, small chunks. You don't have to take a whole deep cut out in one shot. Chip away at it. It's going to make a mess, but I'd rather have a mess of this little foam pieces than a effed up seat. So I'm going to keep cutting at it, and then I will update you guys when I get this thing completely cut, trimmed the way it needs to, and they fit in there well. Alright, so I got the inserts pretty much to a point that they need to be. Everything looks pretty solid. So here's the back insert. It is in place, looks pretty level. The foam is easily moved, so it's hard to say if it's in the exact spot or not, but either way, looks good to me. The technique that I used to get this installed was I put the rear one in completely first, so to where it was flush to the seat all the way around. Obviously the ends are going to stick up a little bit because the seat back is a little rounded. And then on the front side, you can see I cut into there and then I just angled it out. I went a little low on this side over here, but it is what it is. So the reason I went with the back in place first and then worked towards it on the front side is because the back is the female piece and the front is the male. So the front is a smaller size than the rear. So as long as the back fits in, this thing slips in there, and I might need two hands for this. So the front one slips all the way in there. You can see it's a little high off the line. If I pull that down, you can see the cuts, but not a real big deal. you're not going to see it with the cover on. But like I was saying, the front slips into the rear half, so the male is the front, the rear is the female. So the front is a smaller diameter. So the front is going to push down the foam and snap into the backside, which means right now it's not fully snapped, there's still a gap, only because of how difficult this is to get it separated. Once they're snapped together, you won't see any foam inside there. But I think we're at a good point to where we can go ahead, throw the seat cover back on and start cutting the actual fabric of the seat. And then this project's gonna be pretty much finished. All in all, this is like extremely straightforward. I would say the difficulty level is, I don't know, 4 out of 10 maybe? Maybe 3 out of 10? Either way, I'm gonna go ahead, throw the seat cover on, start cutting the fabric of the seat, and then we'll get this thing permanently snapped together and installed back in the car. Alright, so now that we've got the top all back on, we could start cutting it now, but I think before I cut it, I'm going to reinsert those rods that were running down the bolster here with the hog clips in it. I want to put them back in just so I know the seat is as taut as it needs to be. Because the last thing I want is, once I put this strip, if say I cut it first, then I put those pins in, there's always that chance that those pins are going to put stress on this fabric up here, which could potentially result in the fabric pulling out from underneath of the harness pass-throughs. Or maybe not pulling out, but it's going to create an unnecessary wrinkle. Basically, I don't know if you guys can see this. The harnesses are going up through the foam and then into this little circle there. It's basically a little tunnel. It's like a fabric tunnel that runs all the way along this vertical stitch seam. And at the very top here, there's a bar across here. The vertical bars need to go underneath this crossbar. The reason for that is it's putting tension on all of these seams to keep this back portion taut. So I'm gonna thread this in and then we will go ahead and get back on cutting the seat itself. All right, cool, we've got those done, and then I'm gonna go ahead and zip the backs down. Again, only reason I'm doing this is to try and mitigate any chance of this material moving when I go to cut it. All right, so the seat is recovered 90% of the way. I didn't clip the bottom plastic clip or the hog rings back on, but the top is gonna be good. So the next step basically is we're gonna feel where the holes are. You know, this isn't rocket science, just push on it. Where there's no foam on the backside, you're just gonna do a little small incision, like a 1 inch incision, so you can get in there and feel where the foam is all the way around. And you're gonna make small cuts. Don't go straight to the top size. Again, you're gonna help mitigate any chance of cutting too much material, which isn't that hard to do. It's, you know, I mean, be patient, small cuts, and you'll be able to get right in there with no issue. So I'm gonna lay this thing back on its back. I'll set my camera back up for the overhead view, so you guys can really see what I'm doing. I can feel where the holes were cut out in the foam, so I'm just gonna take the knife, I'm gonna put a little 1 inch incision, and then I'm gonna put my finger in there to feel exactly where all the edges are that I have to cut to, essentially. Once we get that 1 inch incision, we're gonna basically do a corner cut, so it's gonna be a 1 inch incision, and then a line from each corner to the tip of that 1 inch incision, and then we're just gonna fold everything back in. Alright, we got the front cut. We're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna flip it over, cut the back, and then I'll bring you in to show you exactly what I did. I cut the wrong fucking spot. Don't be like me, a fucking idiot. I just cut the wrong spot like a dumbass. Well, I'm gonna have a slice in the back of my seat, I guess. I'll have to sew it back up at some point. But for now, back to the install. Alright, so here's kind of what I mean by the slits that I made. So I put a 1 inch cut horizontally from that 1-inch incision, then I cut to each corner so that I can fold each of these flaps in and the harness pass-through can fit right in there. So it's going to be something along those lines. And then for the backside, don't be like me. I was in a rush and I cut way high. Once I cut it and I saw plastic, I was like, oh, I fucked up. But the lower portion where the harness is actually going to be, it is a long cut because it has this center portion here. So the whole thing has to be able to pass through this hole. And then I trim the edges. I might have to cut this slit open a little bit more, but for the most part, it's in the right idea of where it needs to be. So I'm gonna go ahead, throw the camera back up high, and then get these things installed and be done with this. Cool, so that's the backside installed. It looks pretty solid. That thing looks pretty good in there, minus the cut. Don't look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a finished harness pass-through install. Alright guys, that pretty much wraps this video up for the harness pass-throughs made by SP Tuning. Product is high quality. The installation is super straightforward. All in all, I would probably rate this on a scale of 1 to 10 on difficulty, like a 3 or 4 maybe a little lower even. It's really simple. I mean, you're talking 4 bolts to remove the seat, 4 bolts to remove the backrest, some hog rings, which you just need pliers for that. And then just patience with cutting the foam. I would say maybe it's a high risk. As long as you don't go in too willy-nilly, it's not a big deal. Like you saw me do with cutting the hole in the back. I cut in the wrong spot like a dummy. Yeah, that kind of hurts, but whatever. I'll sew it up. Honestly, if I think there's anybody out there who might be interested in doing this, I would say do it. The tools required, pretty much nothing. It's basic hand tools. I just can't express enough how simple this is. It's super straightforward. But all in all, I hope that this video helps you guys maybe overcome your fear of installing these into your car. I was definitely nervous about it. I've had these for probably a month or two. The only reason I waited this long is just because I was in the middle of racing and the season is now over. So I figured why not make a relatively easy video. It only took me a few hours to knock it out. So if you guys like this content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one.